Hey everyone, my name is Sean Cecil from the Oculus Institute, and today I'm going to teach you why the work-life balance ratings on various career websites are total garbage. I had a client I was working with recently, and he would always come to me and say, oh yeah, I'm going to apply to this company because they have a great rating on Glassdoor, or whatever other career sites he was looking at. He looked at a couple, but Glassdoor was his favorite. And he was really paying attention to these work-life balance ratings. And it was the determining factor of the jobs that he applied for, right? If it didn't have a top work-life balance rating, he wouldn't apply to it. And if you think about it, right, at the surface level, that makes sense. But the truth is that those ratings are completely unreliable. And I'm going to explain why. So first off, I worked at a company called the Boston Consulting Group when I was younger. And it's a top tier consulting firm, and they were ranked number 1 or number 2 in Forbes best companies to work for, like, all the time. But the truth is that my experience there was actually really bad. I did not have any work-life balance, and almost nobody did. So how is it that they got ranked so high when the reality was so different? And the truth is that many companies will use, corporate culture techniques, and they'll use all kinds of psychological management tools to get employees really, 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 really motivated so that they can ask a tremendous amount of them, right? And so when you first go in and you drink the KoolAid, and I totally did this, it's almost like joining a cult. The amount of enthusiasm and the amount of social pressure to be enthusiastic and everything that looks good at first glance can really draw you in. And then once you've gone into that, and once you've made a certain amount of sacrifices, then the psychological principle of consistency means that most people will stick with that path, and they'll defend it because they've already operated on it. They've already told everybody, hey, listen, I'm working for this amazing company, it's the best thing. To go back against that breaks a lot of human psychology. Humans are wired to be consistent, right? So when you get all amped up and you go tell everybody, and then you give up certain things in your life, you don't want to say, oh, I made a mistake, right? So as horrible as this sounds, many companies will use techniques to do that early on, to build this kind of corporate loyalty that isn't really based on necessarily being deserved. The second reason why you can have those ratings get really distorted is that there are the kinds of people who will go in and sacrifice the most and give up the most on their work-life balance, and thus create a culture where work-life balance isn't respected, are the people who are what one of my colleagues at BCG called insecure successaholics, right? Which means that they feel like they need to be successful, they feel like they've always got something to prove, and they feel like they're never good enough, right? And those kinds of people are the same kinds of people that are very prone to people-pleasing tendencies, to following authority, to relinquishing responsibility for their life to somebody else because they feel like they're not worthy to make those decisions. And I've seen that pattern in my clients so many times. And so what happens is then they'll keep sacrificing, and they'll keep sacrificing, and they'll keep sacrificing. And so at the same time that they're drinking the corporate KoolAid and going and putting great ratings on Glassdoor, because these companies will tell you, hey, listen, make sure you go vote highly for us on these things, and they'll send you the surveys and all this kind of stuff. At the same time they're doing that to follow authority, they're also sacrificing what they really want because of these people-pleasing tendencies, and that creates this conflict. And then finally, the third reason is one that I alluded to in the second reason, which is that some companies will go to the effort of going out there and saying, hey, listen, make sure you vote highly for us on this. And they'll send you the little survey, and they'll say, and they'll frame it, and they'll make sure that A, you respond, and B, that you respond well, right? Whereas, there are other companies that, aren't really focused on that, and the employees can be having a lot of fun, they can be doing great work, but they're not devoting their time towards taking some stupid survey for somebody else, right? For Forbes or for whatever, right? Because they're focused on what they're actually doing, right? So there's a disconnect between the actual experience and what people are reporting, because, there's certain people who go to the effort of making sure that they get those good reports, right? And so for all those factors, like, the best companies to work for, the work-life balance ratings, they tend not to be really reliable, especially if you're looking at stuff that has a high rating. Now, of course, if something has a very low rating, then that is a sign that something is deeply wrong and you probably want to avoid it. So I would use low ratings as something to avoid, but I wouldn't necessarily use high ratings as something to seek out. Instead, what I would recommend is finding something that's the right fit for you. Finding something where when you read that company's mission, it really inspires you. Finding something where you're gonna be doing a job where you're like, hey man, if I was doing that every day, I would feel really good. Something that's in line with your natural function. Because at the end of the day, the fulfillment that you're gonna get is not gonna come from, hey listen, how much time can I not work? It's not gonna come from, any of this stuff that people really normally think about. It's gonna come from, hey, what's the right fit for you? What motivates you to say, hey, listen, I wanna put in some extra hours because this is fun, this is great, this is what I'm looking for, this is the change I wanna make in the world, right? That's where you're gonna get the most fulfillment. So I would say toss out all of the work-life balance ratings unless you're looking at red flags. It's always good to do a little check on red flags. But in terms of what you actually wanna apply for, look for the things that really motivate you and that really fit with you personally, not with some general cohort of selected survey takers. Before you go, I've got a free gift for you. So if you found this video valuable, if it helped you see the world in a new way, and you're interested in building a career that's going to bring you both personal fulfillment and financial prosperity, then I've got a free presentation for you to help you do just that. So if you go to the link below, it's www.oculusinstitute.com/workshop. That's www.oculusinstitute.com/workshop. Then it'll take you to a registration for a free presentation. It's about 50 minutes long, that's 50, and it's gonna give you the step-by-step process to building your dream career. See you there.